Alrighty. Oop. Okay, there you go. There we go. Now I can see it. Hey, everybody. Welcome. JR here, back again with another. Uh, oh, there we go. I can see it better. With another Life is Strange 2, Life is Strange Heatwaves. Uh, with part 2 here. So, little recap. When we last left, Alex and Steph here on their way to Fort Collins for a gig, so they can for another gig, so they can continue their dream of getting of starting their band and stuff. Uh, they 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 had car trouble, which they initially thought was just oil, but it turns out yes, it was oil. But since it took them too long to realize they were low on oil, it turns out the engine got messed up. So it became a bigger problem than they thought it was with a simple oil change. So with that, they have to stay. They had to stay in the nearby town of Barbazal. Um, Met a couple of people, getting involved in the political issues the drastic political issues going on in Barbazal with water shortages and all that stuff. Got to meet Ethan's little Ethan's uncle on his dad's side. I Yeah, I believe it was on Ethan's dad's side. His uncle on his dad's side, who fortunately for them, thanks to Steph asking if anyone in Haven knew anyone from Barbazal. So Ethan hooked up Steph and Alex with a place to stay. Uh, so that's cool. Got to meet Ethan's uncle Owen himself. Seems like an alright guy. Um, so we shall see how well that goes. So now after, so so we're gonna pick up where. Ooh, excuse me. We're going to pick up with them after their first day, after they spent the night by at Uncle Owen's place. So, ooh, excuse me. So now we will pick up from there. Uh, uh, so let's get started here while I eat my little hamburger here that's off to the side. It almost looks like I'm feeding Steph and Alex over here the hamburger. Let me do that before they steal before they steal my hamburger from under me. Here we go.
6. The diner. Pretty much every small town I've ever been to has a diner. Usually it's retro, the kitchen grease hasn't been replaced since the 90s, the coffee tastes like dog shit, And the food is exactly what you need at 4 a.m. on a cold morning when you wake up for no reason because you're in a new place, in a new bed, and you're hungry, and the guy you're staying with has only enough food for one. This is the Plate and Skate Diner. Steph takes a sip of her coffee. This tastes like dog shit. I grin and stare down at my cup. She's right, but sometimes bad coffee just hits the spot. She smiles up at me, and the sight of her holding back a laugh sends my sides into orbit. We both burst into laughter, and I hear the bell ring behind me, announcing the arrival of a new customer. I hear hushed voices behind me. From over the rim of her coffee mug, Steph stifles her laughter to look just past my head, and I can't help it. I turn around to look. A woman in a navy pantsuit has stepped up to the front counter, where Anita, that's the name of our waitress, runs up to meet her. "Mornin'," she smiles, but the woman in the suit is clearly not here to be seated. "What do you suppose she's here for?" Steph's voice intrudes. I hear her take another sip behind me, but I don't turn. "I don't know," I reply absent-mindedly, watching as our waitress turns and walks back toward the kitchen. The woman in the suit spots me, and I turn around way too fast. "Wow," says Steph. I tuck my hair behind my ear and pick up my coffee mug so I can look busy. "What?" "You're really bad at spying on people." I roll my eyes, and Steph leans over the table, shoulders hunched, smile huge and mischievous like she's stalking prey. "Who do you think she is?"
I like how, excuse me, I like how Steph comments. Steph and Alex are like, we're really bad at spying on people, and I'm like, yeah, just like you're trying to swipe Diane's USB in True Colors, and how kind of obvious you guys were at doing all that. So so that kind of checks out.
Gotta be Maisie Dorsey. You think Maisie Dorsey would be slinking around the Plate and Skate at... She taps her phone screen and it lights up with life. 4 in the morning? No. She has a point. I mean, I don't know many people who would be slinking around at Barbazal Diner in a business suit like that. Yeah, that thing probably costs more than my car. Not a wrinkle in sight either. Reminds me of Diane from Typhon Mining. My entire spine prickles with how obviously Steph is leaning to look past me.
And I just mentioned Diane, and look at that. Bam. We're on the same wavelength there.
Hello? She'll see you." "So?" She grins. "We don't even know who she is." I hear footsteps behind me, and then I hear our waitress's voice. "Coming right out for you," she says before those same footsteps grow closer. Anita appears next to our table. "Have you two decided what you'd like?" Yeah," says Steph. "I'll take the California Benedict, please. Side of fruit." Sorry, the California's unavailable." "What?" asked Steph, glancing down at the menu again just to make sure she read it right. "Anything with poached eggs is off the docket," sighs Anita apologetically. "Sorry, hun. Dishes like that use up too much water. We've been over our quota lately and had to make some tough choices. I could do scrambled on the side if you like."
They should have really made note of that on the menu, so that way you don't have to have awkward situations like this, by the way. Usually, if something's out, you should make a note, a big note of that.
Steph shrugs. "Sounds good." "Uh-huh," Anita says, jotting it down on her notepad. "And for you?" Oh, shit. I haven't even had a chance to look. I'll just have And then I panic and stare straight at Steph as though she would have any idea what to order for me. Steph shrugs and glances at Anita, and I blurt out the first thing that comes to mind. I'll have toast. Toast? They both exclaim in unison. Steph and Anita look at me with so much judgment, I wonder if I've spoken English. French toast, I correct, with bacon. Okay, now that I'm talking, my stomach reminds me of just how hungry I really am. And 2 eggs over medium, please. Satisfied, Steph gathers up both of our menus and hands them to Anita, but she doesn't let her go just yet. So, asks Steph, who's fancy suit lady? Name's Daphne Brinkley, Anita says, but I know who this order is for. I steal another glance behind me, where I find Daphne twisting her hands and looking around nervously. I've worked here for 35 years, and only one person has ever ordered a short stack of chocolate chip smiley face pancakes, a tomahawk steak medium rare, a side of home fries with ketchup on the side, and a bowl of bread and butter pickles. What the? I blurt out. Steph snorts in my direction, but I couldn't help it. That order is weird as hell. I mean, I'd remember that order too. Jonah's been ordering it since he was a kid. Well, minus the tomahawk steak. That started when his doctor told him he was low on iron. Must have made up for it by now, eating like that. Whoa, you know Jonah Macon? Asked Steph, glancing at me with the most suggestive smile. Who's the worst at snooping again? She might as well do a full-blown eyebrow wiggle at me. Course, she says, refilling Steph's coffee mug. You know, he was born and raised here. What was he like as a kid? Damn, Steph isn't holding back. Oh, you know, shy, quiet. Used to come in with his dad all the time. Never gave me any trouble. Sweet kid. I'm sure he'll do right by us with this drought mess. Hope so, anyway. Hard to run a diner on limited water. Steph glances down at her mug, and I glance down at mine. Maybe that explains the state of the coffee. Anita turns to leave. I'll be back with y'all's order. I try to picture a tiny Jonah walking into this diner, hand in hand with his father. Did he have that $1 million politician smile even then? Or did that only develop after the cameras and the interviews and the speculation that must come with having such a publicly available face? I think of his diner order. Chocolate chip smiley face pancakes, tomahawk steak, medium rare, side of fries, bowl of pickles. I can picture the news people covering the story. I just can't see how someone who claims to be environmentally responsible can order a tomahawk steak, something that's not only hostile to animals, but requires gallons and gallons of water to produce. Did he even take care to ask if that steak was grass-fed and sustainably raised? I'm all for eating sustainably, but if Jonah Macon has to order such a bizarre breakfast from his hotel room because of the paparazzi, that's kind of sad. Hey, says Steph, you're thinking again. I was just thinking about Jonah. Steph's smile doesn't fall, but it doesn't rise either. You know, I meant what I said about being here for you and helping you do whatever makes you happy. But I'm also here to ask you questions like, yo, Alex, are you doing what makes you happy, or are you ruminating on something that might make you sad until you fix it? I put my mug down, unable to look at her. Just, she says, resting her hand over my fingers. Be careful, okay? I nod, and our food arrives. The French toast distracts me for a while because, hey, it's French toast, and a boatload of calories ends up being exactly what I need. Steph's phone lights up just as she pops a couple of fresh berries into her mouth. She leans and peers over the street before muttering, "Damn it." What? I say, wedging another piece of French toast into my mouth. I ask the group chat if anyone knows anyone with a Saturn that doesn't need pistons. Or, can drive us. Let me guess, I say. We're too far away. Can no one spare a 6-hour drive on a weekend? I even offered to pay. Not even Ryan? I ask around another mouthful. Not even Ryan, she sighs. Apparently he's gone off to Appalachia to explore some exotic bird calls or something. I chuckle. Sounds like Ryan.
Exactly.
A thought hits me. Are there exotic birds in Appalachia? Who knows? She chuckles, taking a bite of her eggs.
That's funny.
So anyway, what's the plan? What plan?
It's also a very funny way of writing, of writing in and out for Ryan and being like, okay, if you were expecting Ryan to show up in this story at any point, here's a line to just write him out of the possibility completely right there. It's like, unfortunately, no Ryan here. Which, to be fair, is pretty disappointing because I would have actually liked a little redo of the Steph, Alex, Ryan trio dynamic because that was actually one of my favorite parts about True Colors was the chemistry between all three of them. Like I really liked it. So
To get close to Jonah. A plan? I don't really have a plan. I was just going to wait around and see if we ran into him. I need a plan. What if, Steph says, we wait until he goes to the bathroom? No, I say immediately. I've already played that idea out in my head, and I'd rather not pick up a stalking charge before we get to the big city. I know, she says, but just hear me out. We wait for him to go to the bathroom, and then you reach over the stall and read his emotions. Steph, there's no way I'm doing that in the bathroom. What emotions would he have in there anyway? You've never taken a joyous shit before? She asks. The laughter bubbles forth so quick. I feel coffee spray from my nose, and I scramble for a napkin, trying.
yeah, I'm right there with you, Alex. Holy shit. Literally. uh, but hey, when you have a very relaxing, to put it nicely, bowel movement, hey, it's gonna be a very relaxing thing. Oh Jesus. Oh God, Steph. Jeez. Woo.
Trying not to choke on more laughs. Steph is trying so hard to stifle her laughs, she has to turn away from me and cover her face completely. I look around, heat flooding my entire face, and when I can finally get a breath in and Steph's composed herself too, she continues. Think about it though. Where else will we catch him alone? What if we do this the right way and just ask his assistant for some one-on-one time with him? I'm sure he could spare a 5-minute interview. His schedule is probably packed, she says. And that's probably with press engagements only. We've got to be sneaky. I look over my shoulder where Daphne is still standing there, wringing her hands, waiting on Jonah's ridiculous order. Maybe tomahawk steaks take a long time to sear to perfection. Before I have time to talk myself out of it, I'm up and out of the booth and walking toward her. No, wait! Alex, What are you doing? Comes Steph's frantic whispers behind me. But I press on toward Daphne, who's staring back at me like she's unsure if I'm going to ask her a question or walk right by. Hey, I say, way too eagerly. I give her a generous distance because a huge purple aura flares up around her head like one of those lizards with the fans that pop out when they're startled. Good morning, she grins. That same plastic glazed over look that Jonah was wearing in Elias's memory. She's all smiles, but clearly nervous about something, probably wondering whether I'm paparazzi or not. You look like you know your way around this place, I say, having no idea where the hell I'm going with this. Is the food good? She smirks and nods past me. You tell me. Oh, right. I've been sitting, eating with a friend. She's the one who hasn't eaten yet. Stupid, so stupid. Come on, Alex. Can I help you with something? She asks. I look at her again, sheepish this time. Look, I begin, pressing all my fingers against each other. I know Jonah must be super busy this week, but could he spare 10 minutes with me? It's gonna be a no. I just know it. Steph was right. This was a bad idea. I'm so embarrassed. I want to curl up into a little ball and disappear. But that no doesn't come. Are you a student? Am I a what? Yes. I mean, I'm always down to learn. Alex, get it together. What I mean is, I'm not a student at an accredited institution, but I really care about the people of Barbazal, and I know Jonah does too. I want to know what his plan is for the drought situation. Daphne's purple aura vanishes suddenly, and hope wells in my chest. Maybe I'm getting somewhere with her. Mr. Macon is dedicated to ensuring a better life for all Coloradans. She smiles comfortably. Climate change is of the utmost importance to him, and with the recent heat wave affecting several farming communities in the area, the drought is at the top of his list of priorities. She just spent several dozen words not answering my question. And then I realize why that purple aura disappeared. Daphne is in her element now. Catch Jonah Macon's assistant sneaking around a diner stealth ordering a steak and pickles, and she's frazzled as shit. Ask Jonah Macon's assistant a political question, and it's all cupcakes and roses for her. I'm going to have to take a different approach. What does that mean? I ask. Her face is unwavering as I continue. What does at the top of his list of priorities mean? Is he doing anything to stop it? Anything to help Barbazal and the people who make their living farming? Or does it mean he's ready to tell people that it's at the top of his list of priorities? I come off harsher than I intended to. Daphne forces a smile, but her narrowed eyes tell me she's prepared to do battle. It means that I'll forward your concerns to Jonah, and I'm sure he'll be delighted to hear such passion from a supporter. I keep my eyes trained on her, silently studying her, wondering what I can say to throw her off her game. Jonah didn't always order the tomahawk steak, you know, I say. He started with just the pancakes. And I turn to leave, but when I glance over my shoulder, I see her standing there with the blankest expression. When Anita practically jogs up to her with a stack of 3 styrofoam to-go clamshells, Daphne doesn't flinch. A new color blend blooms above Daphne's head, mixing together like watercolors in the air. It reminds me of the hospital, sitting with Gabe and Dad in a way too white waiting room, in a chair so high my feet dangled above the floor. She came in with a clipboard. I always had clipboards. And she shut the door behind her and sighed. Well? Asked Dad. But he didn't have to. He knew. Gabe knew. I knew. We got the results back. I slam myself back down into the booth across from Steph, who stops mid-chew to stare at me wide-eyed. Are you okay? We cried that day at the doctor's office, auras oscillating between purple, deep blue, and red. Purple for fear of losing Mom. Blue for the deep, aching sadness we felt. I wonder if I would have seen this new watercolor magenta blend over us all if I were this familiar with my powers back then. Alex? I don't look at Steph. I can't. If I do, the tears will come. And if the tears come, Steph will call the whole plan off. I focus on my plate, shoving a huge forkful of French toast into my mouth. And then I offer a sliver of an explanation. She's confused. 7. The car. Confused, huh? Asked Steph. Yup. I hate to give a one-word answer, but my brain is busy. We're lying side by side on the grass in Owen's backyard, if you can call it a backyard. It's about the size of a queen-sized bed, but it's the only chill spot we have in this town. So, here I lie, and I take a deep breath of the fresh and hot Barbazol air. I can feel how dry it is in my nostrils. Feels like the moisture here is just gone. I'll forward your concerns to Jonah, and I'm sure he'll be delighted to hear such passion from a supporter. Daphne, that... No, I won't call her names. She's just doing her job, and doing it well, frankly. You know what you need? Asked Steph. I need a lot of things. A hug, a nap, a drink. What do I need? I ask, humoring her. A walk, she says, peeling herself from the ground. A long, boring walk in the hot sun. In a town with no water? Pass. She glances up at Owen's trailer. Owen's got water, she says. That gets my attention. I sit up and look at her. You can't mean to imply that we should really go steal from Ethan's uncle, right? I mean, is it stealing if we're staying there? What kind of host doesn't offer their guests water? And then tell them they can have as much as they want? It's water, for God's sake. I mean, she has a point. But also, the kind of host that also doesn't offer their guests anything to eat? I remind her. Good point, she says. All right, time to find a garden hose in a public park then. The hell? I chuckle. There's no way I'm drinking from a public park hose. Do they even have hoses in public parks? After way too much debate, we end up asking Silas for 2 more water bottles and walking ourselves down the main thoroughfare of Barbazol. It's cooler today than it was yesterday, and there's a welcome breeze rolling through, rustling my hair, making my skin prickle. Ever notice how it smells here? Asked Steph. Smells? Like what? I don't know. Farm stuff? The hell does farm stuff smell like, Miss Seattle? Hey, I was in the city. Then how do you know what farm stuff smells like? It smells kind of like a combination of daisies, she begins, sniffing at the air goofily like a basset hound, dirt, and rust. I sniff the air, much less theatrically, and realize she's right. It smells dry. Yeah, I guess it kind of does, she says. Speaking of, since you're determined to get back to the subject, no matter what extracurricular activities I suggest, what's the new plan to talk to Jonah? Daphne didn't seem too keen on us. What did you say to her anyway? Where do I even start with recalling what happened? That bad? Did you tell her she needs a lint roller or something? That gets a laugh out of me. No, but I, kind of told her I knew Jonah's diner order. You what? She asks, mock outrage playing on that last word. Why? Like as a threat? She drops her voice down a whole octave lower than I even thought her voice could go. I'm Alex Chen. Give me 10 minutes with Jonah Macon, or I'll tell everyone Mr. King of Climate Change likes his tomahawk steak medium rare, and his pickles extra sweet. Yes, Steph. I grin, my voice dripping with sarcasm. As a threat. No, I don't know. I just wanted her to know that I knew information she didn't want me to know.
Hmm.
Wait. You wanted her to know that you know something she doesn't want you to know?
Hmm.
What if she knows you know that something she doesn't want you to know because she knows you know how to see things you shouldn't know, but you know? You know?
Not really, no.
You think she can tell I have powers? I ask. I mean, no, but just be careful, okay? Have you told anyone about them besides me and Ryan? I shake my head. Not even Gabe knew. I kept it all to myself. Until I met her, this girl.
Okay. So, uh, okay, so that's confirmation that also within this story, that she didn't tell Gabe about her powers before the before him dying, because in True Colors you can actually tell Gabe about your powers and stuff uh, when you guys are talking and having a beer on the roof. You could actually tell him about it, and you could have like a little discussion over it. So as far as Brittany did when she wrote this story, I guess she wound up not telling Gabe. So there's that. Plus, no matter what you do in the main game in True Colors anyway, Steph and Ryan will know about Alex's powers anyway. She'll tell them regardless. So that part doesn't really matter within the game. Like everybody, those two will know no matter what you do, really. So
Nope, I say. Just you and Ryan. You're both kind of special to me, you know? Couldn't tell, she says, playfully elbowing me in the arm. Anyway, I've got your back.
I like how Alex says that Steph and Ryan were both special, which is the which is well, she's she's in a relationship with Steph in this story, but within True Colors itself, Steph and Ryan are uh your love interest that you could choose between in the game anyway. So a nice little callback to the fact that both of them were romance options.
Always. But also, be careful. I have to smile because Steph cares. But also, I've had these powers ever since my dad left us. Like, straight up grabbed his car keys and walked out the front door forever. When I learned that he died, I learned to control it. Make it work for me. Help me instead of hurt me. I know how to use my powers now. I've been hiding them for half my life. I know Steph cares. So why is something tightening in my chest at the thought of her trying to tell me how to manage my ability to take on the emotions of others? I stuff those feelings down, deep down, and smile. Be careful. You just seem really confident messing with people's feelings, you know? I remember what Owen said about Charlotte, how I turned her into a zombie. I know not to take on the emotions of others without considering that the consequences could be dire.
And there's also confirmation because we discussed in the last episode when Charlotte was brought up uh, in those previous chapters that in this interpretation of the story, Alex did wind up taking the anger from Charlotte instead of leaving it, instead of leaving her with the anger. Too obviously for Charlotte to deal with the anger on her own instead of Alex just taking it away. Which, as she reiterated here, the consequence of that was Charlotte being a kind of emotionless zombie that's just like walking around in confusion and stuff, pretty much. So, yeah, didn't really pick the best option on that on in that choice in the game. So, that obviously was a consequence for this story here.
And permanent. I don't do that anymore. But that doesn't mean I can't use my powers to my advantage. You know what I'm doing. Steph, I've been doing this for over a decade. I know what I'm doing. Her eyes are trained on me, her face even, and I can't tell what she's thinking. No auras glow around her, no sensations reach me. She just studies me. And then she shrugs and moves on. So, you told her his diner order. Now what? Oh shit. I hadn't really thought that far ahead yet. I mean, we could try to find her again? Should we wait until Daphne goes to the bathroom? What is it with you and stalking people in the bathroom? What? Should I try to ask her out like I did with Diane? Remember how well that worked? Actually, it did work, remember? Maybe Daphne will fall to your charms like Diane did.
Nice. Yet again, I mentioned that before, and now they're even mentioning it here. The whole distraction plan to steal Diane's USB drive in True Colors, and they went with Steph for the distraction here, obviously, because that's one of the things you do to try to sway whether you're gonna romance Steph or Ryan. One of the key little deciding factors is uh, if you have Steph or Ryan be the distraction for Diane. So I like how they're acknowledging that. Yeah, with Steph it did kind of work because Diane was a little surprised and taken aback, and she does ask Alex in the scene if she was blushing and stuff too, and was kind of at a loss for words. So it did kind of work. So I believe she also um, I don't know. I think with Ryan, Diane also kind of has a thing there. So I believe, as far as True Colors go, the implication is, I guess, that Diane is bisexual. I guess for that one. So in any case,
Or like I did. She looks down at her shoes, but her smile brings out the red in the apples of her cheeks. She scratches the back of her neck in thought. Something tells me it'll be hard to get her or Jonah alone. She's right. The walk into town is on a slight decline. I look down at Steph's hand, swinging next to mine, wondering, hoping she'll bump into mine and invite me to hold hers, but she doesn't. Instead, she rattles my thoughts back into the present with a single word. Whoa. I look up at what we're about to walk into, the town square. Shop after shop lines the stone path, which looks carefully preserved through the years. Decades, maybe even centuries. Some of the stones are cracked and brittle looking, sharp scores in the earth here and there. I wonder if it's from the incessant heat that's sure to settle over this place in just a few hours. Or the lack of water. "Mornin'," chimes a slender, middle-aged man in a pub cap, which somehow feels very out of place among all this Central American farmland. He hops down the front steps of his shop, a huge sign dangling overhead that says, "Bobby's Books and Things." "I don't recognize you two," he says, cocking an eyebrow. "And you're not dressed like reporters, unless..." He steps forward with a pointer finger and thumb on his chin. "Are you from some alternative publication out of Boulder?" Steph grins, and I do too. "Good guess," she says. "Alternative, yes. Publication, no. We're musicians." Warmth pours over his face. "Ah," he coos. "Music is the spice of life. I can't get any work done without it." He gestures up at his bookstore and lets out a heavy sigh. "Been in the business 60 years, my family." I look to Steph, who also seems to have clocked the weight of his words. He said it so sadly, more melancholy than nostalgia. "Has business slowed down?" she asks. He gives a sad chuckle. "You could say that. You wouldn't think a drought would hit a bookstore so hard, but we used to have a cafe attached, right over there." I follow his gaze to a tattered awning off the side of Bobby's Books and Things, totally empty underneath. No chairs, no tables, no other sign that a cafe had ever been part of the business. I imagine what this place must have looked like just a few years ago. Did kids gather here after school to do their homework? Did parents use this as a pickup spot once they were off work? How many first dates happened here that led to deeper connections? How many business deals happened here, starting new ventures that may not have otherwise existed? Did little Joni Macon come here when he was little? "You can't run a cafe on no water," he shrugs. "So there that went. Anyway, I'm Bobby." Steph shakes his hand. "Did your parents name you after the place?" Bobby and I both look at Steph in total confusion. You just said it had been around for 60 years, so it's older than you, right?" His face goes blank for a minute before he absolutely erupts in laughter. A woman across the street, straining under the weight of an enormous potted plant, emerges from her flower shop. "The hell are you laughing about, Robert?" "These two," he chuckles, as he slowly regains his composure. "These lovely ladies, bless 'em, asked if I'm named after this place." "Oh, don't flatter him," she grunts, setting the plant down on the porch and brushing the potting soil from her apron. "That's Robert William Dalliday, the 5th. He won't let me forget it. And I'm Paisley Ann Galloway, the 1st. Still Galloway flowers, though," she says, gesturing to her own business's sign. "So I overheard you two are musicians. Are we getting a performance here in Barbizal for the election?" "Joni must have covered it," grins Robert proudly, and then he levels his eyes at me. "He did pay y'all, right? I like Joni, but I don't trust politicians. And well, his voice trails off, but the look he and Paisley exchange says it all. One of them now. There's a story there, but I don't press. I get back to the topic I want to know more about. You have a beautiful floral shop, I say. But how do you run this place with the drought? Her eyes narrow slightly, and I wonder if I've said something wrong. You two here with the government? She asks, her voice bitter. I'm not skimming extra off the city supply, if that's what you're wondering. No, of course not. Steph jumps in quickly. I say, trying to save this conversation, wanted to know if you're doing okay, if this place is doing okay. Paisley and Bobby both soften, still staring at me. Sorry, says Paisley, her shoulders relaxing. It's just been a long summer. I apologize too, admits Bobby. But if you want to know all about Barbizal, how we got here, our journey to where we are today, go look at that statue. He points into the distance, through the shops, where the path continues to the town square. A huge white stone statue sits mounted on a pillar in the middle, and I look to Steph, who's looking back at me with a nod. To the statue. We make it to the center of the town, where that huge stone carving is waiting for us. It's clearly a man on a horse, but I find the little bronze plaque around the other side and read it aloud, curiosity taking a firm hold on me. Augustus Jeremiah Oscar Rhett Barbizal II, commemorated here for his godlike love and compassion in planting this town on a foundation of love, where all are welcome. 1928. Wow, says Steph, stepping up next to me and inspecting the plaque herself. She reaches down and traces the letters. Then she looks up at Mr. Barbizal. That's impressively progressive. 1928, I ask, following her gaze up to the horse and its rider. I have a feeling love and compassion might have meant something totally different back then. What, letting their workers use the same bathrooms as them? Maybe. Or maybe he was nicer than that. It says right there, underlined, all are welcome. Although, I guess welcome doesn't necessarily mean accepted. I study his face, turned up toward the sky, arm outstretched, holding his hat like he's about to fling it into the air. His other hand is, strangely, reaching behind him, like all 5 fingers outstretched, as if he's reaching for someone not pictured, as if he's prepared to help those behind him. I grin. I'm gonna believe he was awesome. I feel Steph look over at me, but I keep my gaze on his face. In fact, I continue, beginning to walk, folding my arms and reaching into the deepest recesses of my brain's vats of creativity. Mr. Augustus Jeremiah Oscar Rhett Barbizal II began his life as a humble shoe shiner. What are you doing? I glance over my shoulder with a grin. LARPing. I catch her grin before I turn back to pacing. He began as a shoe shiner in Denver, Colorado. Mr. Barbizal would shine the shoes of the best of men. Bankers, venture capitalists, hedge fund managers, stockbrokers. Do you know the difference between all of those, or... Shh. I chuckle. Do you want to hear the story or not? Steph folds her arms and rolls her eyes. Stockbrokers, I continue. But he was unhappy. He was lonely. He was shining shoes, but his life wasn't so shiny. Oh my God. But, I continue over Steph's playful muttering, leaning around the statue for dramatic effect. He had a vision. He had a dream. He knew he was going somewhere special. Somewhere his heart could sing into the sky and the wind would rise up behind him, spurring him onward into the great unknown. Isn't that a Lord Huron lyric? Sounds like it, huh? But no. Anyway, Mr. Augustus Jeremiah Oscar Rhett Barbazal II packed up everything he owned, and he walked off into the night with nothing to his name except his shoe-shining briefcase and a granola bar. Had granola bars been invented yet?
Right?
Okay, then jerky or hardtack or some shit. I laugh. Anyway, he walked for days. He was so tired, so hungry. He dreamt of tomahawk steak and pickles. That gets a out of Steph. And then, just when he thought he couldn't go on, just as the hunger threatened to consume him, he found a clearing. Or what he thought was a clearing. He found a community of campers. Only 3 of them, but they all had the same dream. Walking into the wilderness with only a briefcase and a snack, to create a place where love thrives and compassion commands the law.
What?
Steph's face has gone from, oh, holy hell, this is the goofiest story I've ever heard, to, oh shit, you've got my attention. Turns out, he was devastatingly gay. Devastatingly, you say? She laughs. I'm using that from now on. Hi.
What does that even
Name's
mean?
Steph Gingrich, expert drummer, impeccable radio host, devastatingly gay. I like it. And I guess that makes me Alex Chen, professional guitarist, expert emotion reader, devastatingly gay. Lucky for both of us, she says, stepping around the statue to join me. Before I can realize what's even happening, she leans forward, slips her arm around my waist, tips my chin up with her free hand, and plants a kiss next to my mouth. Hi, I whisper, slipping both my hands around her waist and pulling her into me. I kiss her back, square on the lips this time, wanting to drink her in and assure her we're going to make it out here in the middle of fucking nowhere because we have each other. She pulls back. Hey, she says, tucking her hair behind her ear. Thanks for being out here with me. For this adventure. It's pretty cool. Even if Fort Collins is maybe not happening. It's happening, I promise. Although I'm still not sure how we're going to fix this stupid car and drive 6 hours to the show by tomorrow night. Anyone in the group chat have an old Saturn for us? I immediately wish I hadn't asked. Steph's smile vanishes. She reaches into her pocket to pull out her phone and check. I take the moment to look back up at the statue, wondering what the original Mr. Barbazal was really like.
You had to bring everything back to reality. Hey, Alex, right when you and Steph having a very nice moment going on, having fun, and then you had to smack the reality right back into the situation. Oh.
He supposedly founded this place on compassion and love, but would he have tried to fix the car of 2 strangers who'd wandered into his home? I can feel my forehead wrinkling as determination wells in me. Someone in this town has to have the means to help, and I intend to find out who, even if I have to start busting down some doors. Okay, whoa, she says, hands up like she's calming a racehorse. No need to get violent on these people. Violent on who? Comes a voice from nearby, so close it startles both of us into oblivion. As I focus on slowing my heart rate back down to a survivable pace, a figure emerges from around the other side of the statue. A tall man, white cowboy hat, gray t-shirt, dark jeans. He has a big gray handlebar mustache. Looks like a country singer from like the 80s, maybe. Mornin', he grins warmly. Warmth radiates from him. His smile is genuine, like the kind of smile you see on a parent's face at their kid's wedding. Is he always this bubbly? In a way, he reminds me of Gabe. I somehow trust him immediately. Morning, I reply. Nice to meet both of you. I'm Mayor Griffin Biggs. I heard you two broke down just down the road. Hope you don't mind that I arranged a tow for you. Mayor? Asks Steph. A tow? I ask. Course, he says, as if the idea of just leaving the car out there was absolutely preposterous. Can't have vehicles broken down on the highway. It's a hazard to drivers. Not to mention, who knows what could happen to it out there. You can find it at Elias's shop. It's just up the road that way. Walkable distance, maybe half a mile. Get your exercise. I smile at him, then look at Steph. Sounds like the car will be safer now. That gets her to crack a smile. Thanks, Mayor Biggs, she says. Don't mention it. City's covering the cost of the tow. Can't rightfully tow a car and then charge the owners, seeing as y'all are so young. How'd you end up here anyway? We're supposed to play a show in Fort Collins tomorrow night, Steph explains. I nod. Oh, you're musicians. He grins hugely. That's delightful. I used to play the banjo myself years ago. Don't tell anyone you heard that. Had to let it go after the missus passed. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And I really am. Why did you give it up when she passed? A blue aura glows over his head, and Steph looks at me like, why the hell are you asking this poor man such invasive questions? He answers, though.
Ooh, excuse me.
She loved the banjo. She's the one who taught me to play. My Wisteria Aveline. We used to be a whole family of musicians. Me, Wisteria, and our 12. You're 12? Asks Steph. Children. Most are grown now. Holy shit, this man has 12 kids. Clover, Ethel, Heather, Clementine, Blossom, Rosemary, Primrose, Juniper, Opal, Daisy, Laurel, and Iris. All girls. His aura fades from blue to a brilliant gold at the mention of his daughters, and my heart lifts. I feel a warmth come over me, a cloud-soft tickle against my skin like I'm neck-deep in a bowl of feathers, or like fish are gently swimming all around me in a sea of gold. It makes me wonder when, if ever, I would have seen Dad glowing gold. It's hard to imagine. If I'd had my powers then, I can only dream of what he would have looked like. Definitely purple. All the time. Especially right before he walked out. When we visited Mom in the hospital, he might have been blue, perpetually, until Gabe couldn't understand what Mom was asking for enough to get her a cup of water. Then he would have been red. But mostly, when all was quiet, when nothing was happening, when Gabe wasn't pissing him off and I didn't have to jump into the middle to mediate, he would have been purple. Worried. Anxious. Terrified. That was Dad. And what, may I ask, are your names? He asks, adjusting his weight to one foot and looking from Steph to me and then back. Steph, she offers, although I sense hesitation in her voice. And this is Alex. Our car broke down because we ran out of oil and blew out the engine. Do you happen to know anyone with an open afternoon tomorrow? Or a Saturn with pistons they don't need? Well, I might, replies Mayor Biggs with a beaming smile. Know someone? Steph and I both ask in unison, as all attempts to hide our desperation fade quickly at the prospect of some kind of rescue. Have a Saturn with pistons I don't need, he elaborates. Steph and I look at each other, and her smile matches mine. Finally, we're getting somewhere. My daughter, Clover, has been fixing up a Saturn way in the back of our barn. I'm sure she's given up on the project. Maybe it's a match. I live right up there, he says, looking behind him and pointing up to the hill just beyond the town, where there's a clear view through the trees of a house. Not a large one, or at least not a house the size you'd expect from someone named Mayor Griffin Biggs. A white house, average size, looks like a rancher, single story, modest. I won't be able to join you, unfortunately. Too much election business to handle in town. His voice drops a bit at that last part, and I get the feeling this whole election is weighing him down. I mean, it's to be expected, right? It's a lot of pressure for a mayor of thousands of people. Dealing with the paparazzi and political entourages and fancy cars and parades and welcome processions. I can't imagine Mayor Biggs has ever dealt with anything of this magnitude before. Although, I guess Mayor Biggs is a politician himself, so maybe he has. A thought crosses my mind that tightens my chest like little else has lately. Gabe would have made a great, great mayor for Haven Springs. I could totally see it. Mayor Gabriel Chen, although he would have insisted on just Gabe, because that's the kind of guy he was. The kind of guy to risk his life, to give his life, to save someone. Hey, comes Steph's voice, and I feel her arm around mine, snapping me back into the moment. I think that sounds like a great idea, don't you? Yeah, I reply, assuming whatever part of the conversation I missed was related to Mayor Biggs inviting us over to his house. Hey, before we go... I pause, resting my hands on Steph's, which is still resting on my arm. How are things with the drought? I heard Barbazal is really going through it. Yes, sighs Mayor Biggs, shoving his hands in his pockets and gazing up at the statue. We, the people of Barbazal, have weathered storm after storm through the years. You don't get to be 100-year-old town of 20,053. I smirk inside because I was damn close with my population guess. Without a fair share of hardships. But we'll figure it out. We've got resources in the meantime, you know. Water bottles were flown in from Denver just last week, so we can save Barbazalians the drive. You know, most stores don't deliver out here. But I have to ask, is there a long-term solution? Alex, whispers Steph. No, it's a fair question, acknowledges Mayor Biggs. Long-term solutions are for long-term problems. We're in a bit of a dry spell because of a recent heat wave, but now that it's over, our climate should return to symbiosis as quickly as it left. No offense, but have you had experts out here to confirm that? Or are you hoping that's the case? We have made assessments. Mayor Biggs nods, even though that's not what I asked. And our assessments have concluded that this was a temporary event, a fluke in the weather, if you will. We've had lower temperatures here than we've had in weeks, you know. Oh God, it's the old global warming can't be happening because it's cold where I live argument. I like Mayor Biggs and all. I like his smile. I trust his heart. But if he believes climate change isn't a problem, if he thinks this recent heat wave that ripped through Barbazal isn't indicative of a larger problem, I have to side-eye his politics. Do you believe climate change is a real problem? I ask. Of course, he replies, to my great surprise. Of course we do. But we can't uproot our lives and move out of Barbazal just because of a little weather shift, you know? We have to adapt. We have to bring our people resources so we can adjust, you know? He's throwing in a lot of you-knows for someone who's not trying to give political answers. And sure enough, seconds later, a purple aura flares up around his head, and then it fades into blue. If only I could get inside that head of his. And then, as if the universe heard my silent wish, Mayor Biggs turns around and stares up at the statue again. As sure as Augustus Jeremiah Oscar Rhett Barbazal II founded this place on love and compassion, we will continue this place, our home, on adaptation and resilience. I glance at Steph, who's looking up at me with questioning eyes like, what the hell are you up to? And I wink at her to let her know that I'm definitely up to something and that I know exactly what I'm doing. I've had these powers for so long now, it feels like I'm holding a painter's palette in my hands. Just call me the Michelangelo of emotions. I'm a professional, and I know exactly what Biggs needs. I pull away from Steph and step right up behind Mayor Biggs, my hand outstretched so I can tap into that purple haze around him. Voom! I'm sucked into his world, hazy and sickly plum, like the color of a bruise, and a dull pain creeps down my arms. Those golden goldfish are back, but when I look down at them, I realize they're not fish at all. They're leaves. My arms are covered in vines, coiling up over my fingers and wrists, anchoring me to the floor. I'm standing in a living room filled with white, green, and light brown rattan. I'm not the only thing in here covered in plant life. Huge, bursting ferns and monsteras line the baseboards. Vines hang down from the ceiling like hair. A hazy mist covers the room. I'm in a literal jungle, which I guess is what living in a house with 12 kids must feel like. By the vintage design of the furniture and the realization that the carpet itself is green, I guess I must be looking at a place that's been in the family for generations. And then I get my answer. Girls! Coos a man's voice from the doorway. A young man, maybe in his 30s, stands there in jeans and a white t-shirt. Your mother and I have a surprise for you. He pulls his white cowboy hat, exactly like the one Mayor Biggs was just wearing, just far, far crisper looking, brand new. His big blue eyes go even huger, and he squats down, arms outstretched at the sight of about a dozen, no, I count exactly a dozen girls, ranging in age from 2 to teens, who sprint in from the kitchen, squealing for their father. A couple are dressed identically, which makes me think they might be twins. But they all run in with unbridled enthusiasm. They rush him right there in the living room, tackling him and covering his face in kisses. And I'm sure I've never seen so much love in one room. What is it, Daddy? Screams one. Are we getting a puppy? Are we going to the park? Is a storm rolling in? And can we watch it on the veranda? No, no, no. He laughs, cuddling.
I really can't get, especially in this situation, I really can't get over Erica and her voices and whatnot that she's giving some of these characters. Uh, trying to trying to have little kitty girl voices is kind of funny. uh, uh, Erica's doing great though. She's doing great.
Cuddling them all in close. Well, what is it, Dad? Don't leave us wondering. Yeah, tell us. Is it about the baby? I gasp. A baby? Why, yes, he grins. It is about the baby. I hold my breath and wonder if I really want to be here. That aura I saw, an aching purple blotch, does not look like a father running in to meet his 12 daughters and talk to them about the 13th. Oh no. You're getting a little sister. All of them erupt in squeals and cheering, throwing their arms around their father. Yay, another girl! What should we name her? I think we should name her Petunia. Petunia's an ugly name. What about Peony? Peony isn't a name at all. Your mother and I have chosen a name already, actually, assures Mayor Biggs.
I will say, Mr. Biggs here and his wife, what realistically, what are the odds? What are seriously the odds that they would have 13 girls all in a row like that, one after the other? How what are the odds 13 times that that his wife gives birth and they all turn out to be girls? Jeez. Talk about having a streak. it's almost it almost reminds me of my family on my father's side, because on my father's side of the family, um, it is rare for for my father's side of the family to have boys in the family. So anytime a boy is born on our side of the family, it's kind of like a big celebratory moment. uh, oh boy. Well, not if this story is anything to go by, because there is no boy.
Squeezing them all again tight. Suddenly another dog pile befalls him. All of the girls ready with more questions, rapid firing at him so fast. I wonder how he copes with all this attention all of the time. But I guess that's how his job is too, as mayor and all. What is it, Papa? Is it tulip, Daddy? Is it tulip? Petal. Orchid. He throws his head back in laughter at their curiosity.
Flower
They
names.
seem like delightful kids. Magnolia May Biggs. The silence is palpable, and then the questions start anew. Magnolia? Asks one with utter confusion. But that's not even a flower name. Neither is laurel, blossom, or opal. But opal's at least a gemstone. Rosemary's just a plant. A yummy and useful plant. Thank you, Daisy. Girls, coos Mayor Biggs. There's a very good reason behind the name Magnolia. And do you know what that is? He looks up at the oldest, who can't be more than 15 years old, with long curly red hair. She leans in close, a few of the ceiling vines bending with her. Is it because magnolias are strong? His smile beams so brilliant, I would expect a golden aura, but instead, those little purple flickers dance through the air like tiny tetrafish do. A thin haze of anxious purple all over, with flecks of absolute terror sprinkled across it. His bottom lip trembles so subtly, I almost miss it. That's exactly right, Clover, he nods. Magnolias are strong, resilient. They'll weather the driest earth and the cruelest of storms. And right now, your sister needs to be strong, like a magnolia, and she needs us to be strong for her, okay? I try to swallow but can't, and all 12 girls nod together, the oldest few exchanging glances like they know something's wrong. Horribly, horribly wrong. Vines shoot up from the ground, racing up my legs and torso and over my arms, yanking me down, threatening to swallow me whole. I shut my eyes, but before I can scream, the vines vanish, disintegrating against my skin like dandruff and flaking into the wind. I open my eyes again. I'm in a hospital. Mayor Biggs is holding a woman with long, red, curly hair who is sobbing into his shoulder. Her knee-length floral dress looks like a hospital gown. It is a hospital gown. And he holds her so close, so tight, she cries, that I feel tears spring to my own eyes at the realization of what's happened. The 13th daughter of Griffin and Wisteria Biggs is gone. Grass sprouts up through the tile and up around my shoes. I'm standing on lush green grass, and when I look up, I find Mayor Biggs standing to my right, and exactly a dozen women, many of them around my age, some in floral dresses, some in shorts, standing in a circle across the yard. It's blazing hot out here, and some of them fan their faces against the scorching sun. But all of them, every single one, is staring up at a tree as tall as the single-story ranch house behind them. A tree with big green leaves, bursting with pillowy white flowers as big as my head. One of the women reaches up and dabs at her eye with a napkin, and the next woman pulls her close against her. I leave Biggs's side and approach, the sounds growing fainter as I walk. I look up at the tree. A magnolia. One of the girls, the tallest, with long curly red hair pulled back in a braid halfway down her back, breaks from the group and steps forward, slowly. Her face is tear-stained. She's not crying now, almost like she's cried every tear she has to cry. Her brows are knit together determinedly as she cradles something in her arms. I strain to see what it is, but soon I get my answer. She kneels at the foot of the tree and gently nestles a big glass fishbowl in the grass, as carefully as if it were a newborn baby. In the fishbowl, a huge orange goldfish flits from wall to wall, sucking at the water as it swishes its fins around playfully. She, I'm guessing this is the oldest, Clover, based on her hair, stands back up and rests her hand on the tree. "Before you were born," she says, her accent sharp like her father's, "Daddy said I could get a pet goldfish, and if I took real good care of him, I could hold you when you joined us Earthside, feed you bottles, and even roll you around in our little red wagon." I feel my cheeks burning with more tears, and I glance down at my feet and take a deep breath before Clover continues. "Well," she says, looking down at the fish, "I took care of him. He's an old man now. His tank uses too much water to keep him. We're in a drought, you know. We've all got to do our part." She glances around at her sisters, all of whom nod before turning back to the magnolia. "So," sighs Clover, shoving her hands in her pockets, "I thought he'd make a good friend for you. Till his time is up, too. He'll keep you company out here." Her voice cracks now, and I hear her sniff. "His name's Boy, since he's the only boy among us. I'm not creative." Several sad laughs ring through the group, and even I can't help but crack a smile. "You take good care of him out here for me," she says, wincing in pain. We won't forget you." She turns to leave suddenly, right toward me. A moment of panic grips me, and then I remember she can't see me. She steps right into me, walking through me like a cloud of smoke, and I feel a wave of cold come over my entire body. I begin to shiver, shutting my eyes and embracing the darkness until I hear a familiar voice. Steph's voice. "Ha! Totally." I look up at the back of Mayor Big's head, at the statue before him, and then I look over at Steph, who's mid-sentence. You'd think those people up in Denver wouldn't mind not watering their lawn for a few weeks. Am I right? Steph sees my face, and a breeze rolls through, and I realize my face is wet. Just as Mayor Biggs begins to turn around to look at me, I wipe away my tears ferociously before he can see. But he does. That statue, I explain, my voice cracking. Something about it just... it's beautiful. Fuck. That's probably the most unbelievable thing I've ever said, and from the look on Steph's face, she knows it too. Isn't it lovely? Asked the mayor, sighing up at it. I had it commissioned from an artist out of Denver, over 30 years ago now. He whistles. Man, does time fly. That water shortage, I say, wanting to cut to the point so Steph and I can get out of here. Is it really because people in Denver don't want to stop watering their lawns? Is that why you're diverting the river? Mayor Biggs turns to look at me, his face just a shade or two paler. Actually, we're diverting the river to produce hydropower for Barbazal. I know the dam isn't exactly what folks around here wanted, but we're devoting funds to more sustainable power harvesting practices, and we're supporting farmers in their mission to switch to farming practices that use less water. He steps closer to me. It reminds me of my dad, when he used to come forward, menacing as hell, and tell me to go to my room or demand that I stay out of this. But something about Mayor Biggs' posture, the warmth in his blue eyes, assures me he's only being earnest. Don't believe everything you hear, Alex. He sounds almost like he's pleading. Or even everything you read. We're in the middle of an election, and people will slant stories and twist facts into anything shaped like what they're trying to push. That's how politics go, I'm afraid. Everyone here has an opinion on your vote. Hell, I have an opinion on your vote. We here in Barbazal just want to do the right thing. I want to do the right thing. And I want you to do the right thing too. Steph steps forward now to rescue me, her shoulders just slightly higher than they usually are. Thanks, Mayor Biggs, she says, resting both her hands gently on my shoulders and coaxing me to move. We'll stop by your place later and talk to Clover like you said. Appreciate you letting us have a look around. But I can't just let this end here. I can't just let him get away with these platitudes about staying neutral. Where is the emotion about all of this? Why isn't he furious? He chuckles. Yep, I'm sure she can help you get the pistons out. Girl knows her way around a car, he says. Got enough friends with tractors, you know? Steph's laugh is the most exaggerated, fakest, throatiest laugh, and she shuffles me away and down the road back toward town so quick I nearly lose my footing. He's just so neutral, so painfully, unnaturally neutral about what this drought is doing to Barbazal, to his town, to his family. I remember Charlotte's face weeks ago as she looked at me and said, I felt horrible this afternoon. I didn't know if I could survive that feeling. But now, it's like when your leg falls asleep. And even though it's still attached, it's become something other than you. My whole life, I've always felt so deeply. But maybe this is better? And the guilt hits me right in the chest. I shut my eyes against it. There's no shame in needing to feel numb for however long it lasts, I'd said. If it gets you through another day. I did that. I saw the rage she felt toward her own child, and I heaped confusion and ambiguity right on top. I wiped Charlotte's slate of emotion clean, took it all on myself, left her blank and empty. I won't let Biggs numb himself to this. Mayor Biggs turns to leave, and Steph is pulling me away, but what if I I reach forward into that purple aura over his head, and a rush of emotion comes over me. I clench my hand tighter, almost into a fist. If some stronger emotion would make Biggs see just what a serious situation this is, then maybe I'm the only one who can make that happen. Mom said grandmother used to tell her, the tapestry of anger is woven with fear. It's not hard to translate. The cloud around him turns blood red and radiates like a supernova in all directions as I clamp my hand shut and fall to one knee in exhaustion. "Alex!" exclaims Steph, running behind to help me back up. I open my eyes and I see Mayor Biggs turning to look at us. "Y'all all right?" "Yes," I say so fast that my voice cracks. I clear my throat and stand again, ignoring the wobbling in my knees. "Yup, just a little dehydrated." "Convenience store's open," he says tersely, nodding just up the road. I caught that tone switch. His steps are heavy as he turns to leave again, and I breathe a sigh of relief that I got away with that. As soon as Mayor Biggs is out of earshot, Steph is all up in my ear, hanging onto my arm so tight I feel like it might fall off. "What'd you see?" she whisper demands at me. "And are you okay?" That last question settles deep in my chest like a cooling salve, and I feel my shoulders relax a little. I reach up and squeeze her right back, grateful for her care. And then I try to think of how to answer that. What did I see? It takes me a moment to remember, and then her name. Magnolia. I say so softly Steph doesn't quite hear me. "Huh?" she asks. This time, the full weight of the name catches in my throat and my voice comes out like a croak. "Magnolia," I say. "Mayor Biggs' daughter." Steph gets quiet and relaxes her grip a little. "I don't remember him naming a Magnolia." "She died," I say, the word biting through the air just as the wind picks up a little. "She was the 13th. "Oh," replies Steph, pulling away. I can almost feel her thinking next to me in the silence, thinking of what to say, maybe, what to do. She steps in front of me and wraps her arms around me. "We don't have to do this," she says. "You know you can back out any time." I shake my head and embrace her back. No, this means even more that I have to do this. I can't just walk away from so many hurting people whose lives are being threatened over a water shortage. Barbazal citizens who have been here for decades are looking at uprooting their whole lives over this. I have to do something. For all of Barbazal. For Magnolia. I can't take away their emotions. I know that now. But maybe rearranging them a bit would help. Starting with making Biggs care. I look back up at Mayor Biggs' home, and Steph follows my gaze. "Look, Alex," says Steph. "I hate to insist on it, but this is really wearing on you. Let's just get the pistons and go, okay? I'm really worried about you." I keep staring at the house. "Alex?" "Huh?" I ask, snapped out of it. Steph is looking down at me with eyes narrowed in worry. "I'm fine," I say way too quickly. "I'm good, really. I just want to talk to Jonah and..." I pull away, wipe my eyes again, and clear my throat. "Talk some sense into him about this climate situation. Before, you said you wanted to find out what he really thought about climate change. Now you're hoping to talk some sense into him? What changed?" "Nothing," I say. "I mean..." "You didn't just see Magnolia, did you?" she asks. "There's more to it, isn't there?" I sigh, unable to hide from Steph any longer. I saw all of Mayor Biggs' daughters. They were standing around a magnolia tree, and the oldest, Clover. I tell her everything about Clover, about the sisters, about the tree. The water situation is so bad. Clover couldn't even keep her goldfish. We have to do something, Steph. I have to talk to Jonah. And finally, I tell her about dialing up Mayor Big's anger. You what? Shh. Ugh. She paces in front of me. This is such a bad idea. You just gave him a lit torch. I put it together. When we're in a drought? That's exactly what I'm saying, she sighs. Look, Alex, I just hope you know what you're doing. I promise I've got this, I assure her. I've had these powers for how long? She looks me up and down. Long enough to get comfortable with them. I've mastered them, okay? I retort, surprised to hear the snip in my own voice. I soften. Look, Steph, I appreciate the concern, but you have to trust me on this. I've learned from my mistakes. I know what I'm doing. She's standing with her arms cradled around herself, staring at her sneakers with her forehead wrinkled in deep thought. She starts, sighing deeply and shrugging. I also want to make sure your mental health is okay. These are big emotions to be experiencing with these people. I know it takes a lot out of you. I know what it's like. It's a punch in the gut, remembering Steph's own struggle with depression. She's been through so much, and yet here she is, worried for me. I smile and reach forward to cup her chin, even though she's just an inch taller than me. It will be once I help these people. Her eyes flicker with something. Helping these people won't undo what happened with Charlotte. Another punch straight to the gut. I know. I swallow. But even if this isn't a do-over, I have to do something. I made the mistake of taking away her emotion, but turning things up can't hurt. I can always turn that around if things go sideways, right? You don't, she says, have to do anything. You could just leave people alone. Ouch. Steph, you're not just playing with emotions, Alex, she snaps. You're playing with people's lives. After a long moment looking at me, she walks ahead of me down the path back toward town, the mayor's house sitting atop the hill just behind it. I watch her go, wondering what kind of monster she must think I am. Playing with people's lives? Steph, let's go get those pistons and figure out how we're going to get your ass in front of Jonah. I cringe. Please don't say that again. Regretted it as soon as I said it. 8. The house. If Owen's trailer is an average Barbazalian home, Mayor Big's rancher, which looks so small from the middle of the town square, is a palace. I didn't realize it from where we were standing earlier by the statue, but the 2 double front doors are white just like the rest of the house, so we couldn't see just how tall they were. And they're tall. Holy shit.
Yeah, Alex definitely, well, considering some of the mistakes that Alex has made from True Colors for here, she does need to be extremely careful how she's gonna try to use her powers on people. Because like Steph says, she doesn't want to have a repeat of what she did to Charlotte. So, uh, hopefully a situation like that or a worse situation than that is not in the future here.
Marvels Steph. Mayor Biggs is loaded. I mean, he's the mayor. He's the mayor of Barbazal, she scoffs. No offense to this place, but they don't exactly scream that they're rolling in dough. How's this guy getting paid so much? Taxes? I shrug. She shrugs in return, and we both turn back to the door. Think we should knock again? I don't know, I reply. I wasn't counting. You count when you knock on someone's door? I feel my cheeks grow hot at how weird she clearly thinks that is. I mean, in my head? Her mouth curves into a smile, and any lingering tension from our conversation dissolves like sugar in water. You're pretty cute, Alex Chen. And just as she's about to step forward, fist raised to rap at the door again, saying, 1, the huge white door flies open inward, and Steph jumps back to attention next to me. A tiny round face emerges in the doorway, a pointed chin, a button nose, long dark hair twisted into a messy braid over the shoulder, and big, huge in fact, green eyes. Can I help you? She asks, her voice soft, sweet, and drawly. I begin, surprised to hear the crack in my voice. Hi, I'm Alex, and this is my friend Steph. From the corner of my eye, I see Steph shoot me a look, but I can't make out the details in her face. I know I've said something off. Can we come in? I ask.
I have a feeling what that is.
Opal, she says, pulling the door open further and stepping into the light. She folds her arms across her chest, her V-neck dark green sundress revealing just enough cleavage for me to have to physically concentrate on keeping my eyes on hers, but not so much that it wouldn't be church-worthy. And that depends. Who is we? We're from out of town, I explain. Eyes on her eyes, eyes on her eyes, eyes on her eyes. Our car broke down a few miles down the road, and we ran into your dad, Mayor Biggs. To my surprise and disappointment, she rolls her eyes. I've heard that one before. My daddy doesn't go outside of town, and we don't talk to paparazzi. She steps back into the house, and just before she can shut the door, Steph reaches her hand forward to stop it. Wham! The girl gasps, and I guess I do too, because my hands fly to my mouth in shock as Steph fights for us. For me. We didn't run into your dad on the road, she explains. We ran into Silas, who took us to Elias, who told us to find Jude, who essentially kicked us out of the hotel, which is when we found Owen, who recommended we eat at Plate and Skate, which is where we met Anita. And while we were out for a walk this morning by the statue of Augustus Jeremiah Oscar Rhett Barbazal II, we ran into your father, Mayor Biggs. That enough of an alibi for you? We're not paparazzi. We're stranded musicians, looking everywhere in this town for some goddamn help and maybe a chance to talk to Jonah about the water crisis so we can help you all. My heart is thundering in my chest. What the hell are you doing, Steph? This could be our only chance to get some help with the car and get some intel on Jonah, and she's ruining it. Her mouth is going to get us banished from Barbazal altogether. But then I remember what Mayor Biggs said to us back at the statue, or what Steph repeated that Mayor Biggs said. I was too busy at the time combing through his memories. Your dad, I offer, said to ask for Clover. He said she might be able to help us with our Saturn, since she also has one. Opal's one green eye that I can see through the crack in the door widens, blinks a couple of times, looks from me to Steph, and then from Steph to me, and then softens its gaze. Well, why didn't y'all say anything in the first place? Daddy never mentioned the Saturn. He's so damned ashamed of that piece of shit. She swings open the door and welcomes us into the foyer, which is the size of Owen's whole trailer. I instinctively, politely, reach down and remove my sneakers, setting them neatly to the side as I try not to trip over myself while gawking at the deer antler chandelier over us. What if that thing falls? How are the light bulbs wired through them if they're real? Are they taxidermized? Did Mayor Biggs hunt and kill those deer himself? Or is this one of those synthetic $5,000 pieces of art that's been so overly processed you can't even tell if it once grew on an animal? Y'all drink sweet tea? Comes Opal's sing-song voice from the next room over. Soon we're sitting on huge plush sofa cushions, our socked feet kicked up onto leather ottomans. I don't have to wonder if they're real. This whole room smells of leather and wood polish in the best way. It smells like an old library or a cozy little bookstore that's ancient as it is beautiful, meticulously maintained. I look down at my glass of sweet tea and realize, even as I sip it down, it doesn't feel like it's getting much lighter. That's just how heavy the glass is. Everything in this house is unaffordable for me. Now, begins Opal. She sits across from us in a leather lounge chair, legs folded up to one side underneath her, her green floral dress falling over the edge of the chair. That dark braid sits over her shoulder just so. Every tendril looks like it was put there on purpose. Is this how rich people look, just lounging around their house? Social media worthy all the time? Where'd you say y'all were from? She takes a sip of her sweet tea while Steph answers. She begins. I know exactly what her struggle is. That, where are you from, could be asking a million things. My mind cycles back through all the foster homes and centers I went through. Okay, maybe not every single one, because there were a lot, but several come to mind. And whenever anyone used to ask me, where are you from? For a while, I'd answer with Portland, Oregon. Then, when I moved to foster home number 2, I realized the caretakers were asking me which center I was from, not where I was born and raised and called home, or even the age-old, where are you really from? They didn't care about any of that. Helping Hands Group Home, I'd answer. Great, they'd say, confident in their choice to classify me as a promising addition, a charity case, or a lost cause. Or 2 of those. Or all 3. Either way, I was another mouth to feed. Haven Springs, finishes Steph, and those 2 words pull me out of the spiral session I definitely didn't welcome and definitely didn't want to continue. Yup, Haven Springs, I echo, saying it aloud and helping my anxiety even more. Opal looks from me to Steph and back to me, her green eyes piercing and studying, but then her mouth curves into a smile. My sister Clover likes to visit Haven Springs. Says they have the most darling little flower shop there. I smile inside, warmth radiating through me at the memory of Eleanor and Riley. Yeah, I smile. Yeah, they do. So you drove up here to Barbazal? She asks. What for? And she takes another sip. This time I step in. We were supposed to be passing through to Fort Collins. Opal rolls her eyes at that, which makes me pause. What is it about Fort Collins that has her so irritated? Oh, it's nothing. She quickly recovers, holding out a hand in midair between us for reassurance, as if she would rest her hand on my knee if I were sitting closer. It's not you. It's just that everyone's just passing through. It's what cost Barbazal all its tourist attractions. Tourist attractions? Steph asks, the skepticism in her voice unmistakable. Like what? I'm sure I can guess what Steph is thinking. Hay rides, petting zoos, corn maze, maybe a community garden in the spring or a watering hole to swim in the summer. Opal must clock Steph's tone, because she lowers the glass from her lips before she's taken another sip and stares at Steph, studying her. Theme park, she says, relishing our responses, which are, of course, audible gasps. "You had a theme park here?" asks Steph. And then, probably to cushion against an accusation of being super gullible, "Was it a real theme park?" "Real as the nose on my face," she beams. "Daddy used to take us all there. Used to be a lake park and all, with a water slide and everything." She finishes the sentence, but the way she delivered that last word didn't sound like she was finished. It sounded like there was more she wanted to say. Much, much more. "What happened to it?" I ask. She blows a raspberry and sets her drink down on the huge metal side table next to her chair. Seriously, how heavy is that thing? And pulls her legs to the other side of her, leaning on the arm of the chair and sighing again as she prepares to jump headfirst into something. "Like everything else around here," she hisses. "It dried up. The water first, and then all the tourism. People stopped coming, and so we stopped going. My family used to be there every Saturday morning at 8 o'clock like, well, clockwork. Until we just weren't. I was only 6 then. I'd been a few times, but every Saturday I'd ask Daddy to let me jump off the high dive. I used to look up at that thing every time and wonder what it would feel like if I could jump and, for a moment, feel like I was flying." Opal's staring at the wall behind Steph and me, and I follow her gaze up to a family photo of Mayor Biggs, sitting in the very armchair in which Opal now lounges. A tall, blonde woman standing behind him, who I can only assume is his wife, Wisteria, and all 12 of their little girls, gathered around their parents and sitting on the ground in front of them, all in beautiful little Sunday dresses, maybe even Easter, since all of the hair in the picture looks professionally curled. The sound of Opal sighing brings me back to reality, and when I turn back to her, she is now gazing toward the window at the far end of the room. I follow it and notice just how big this property is. The lush, sprawling grass keeps going for what seems like all the way up the hill behind it. Of course, I can't see all the way to the top. Far down the way, it turns into thick, verdant trees, but until then, it looks like a golf course. Just the backyard, not the front, where people can see. "Wow," I marvel as I survey the property, which seems to have completely, suspiciously, escaped this drought, and then realize I've whispered it out loud. Steph glances at me and then back at Opal, just as Opal sniffs, and I realize she's crying. There's a brilliant blue aura over her head. "Beautiful tree, isn't it?" I look back out the window and spot a huge magnolia tree along the edge of the yard with huge green leaves, but no white flowers. I stare at it, strong and towering, the blue of Opal's aura reflecting off the window in front of me. And then, that's not a reflection. That's the tree. Blue light wanders over the leaves, flickering like flames, red and purple dancing among them. I suppress the urge to gasp at its beauty. How is this happening? Trees can't feel emotions. Can they? Is that the magnolia? I ask. Opal looks like my words were a knife. "What do you mean, the magnolia?" she asks. Oh shit, she's right. I wouldn't know there was a "the" in front of the magnolia unless I'd been here before. Or I'd been poking around in her father's memories. I start. Opal's eyes narrow in suspicion, and I realize I have to make some shit up. Quick. "I heard your father mention it." "He doesn't talk about the magnolia," she says, pushing herself up out of the chair and looming over the two of us, like she wishes she'd poisoned our tea. Shit. "He said wisteria," exclaims Steph, leaning closer to me. "Not a magnolia." She dons what is, to me, the fakest smile of all time, even throws in a pff for good measure. Opal softens, her shoulders lower, her forehead relaxes, and she lets out a deep breath. Sorry, she offers, her voice suddenly mousy and fragile. She sits, no, collapses, back down into the chair. That was rude of me. I know y'all don't mean no harm. The silence passes between the three of us, tight and agonizing. That blue aura lingers around Opal's head as she focuses her gaze on the rug beneath our chairs, swirling browns and greens and ivories, and I realize there are fish swimming around in the pattern. Steph ventures forward, gingerly. So, she begins, what is the significance of the magnolia tree? Thank God for Steph. I have to find out more about that tree. I have to see it, touch it, find out what it feels. Opal picks up her tea and looks at it, then pushes herself out of her chair and makes for the kitchen. We're gonna need something stronger, we hear her say. Steph and I look at each other. She shrugs like, why not? I smile. Just a couple hours later, Opal, Steph, and I have each had enough wine to tell our life stories, or at least the parts suitable for public consumption, and spill a little wine on the rug, only for Opal to reassure Steph that Daddy has the house deep cleaned once a month, and you needn't worry about it because it's old anyway. I look down at it, the fish looking like they're literally swimming around the rug now. I look at the wineglass in my hand, at the Moscato sloshing around inside, no matter how still I try to keep my hands. Opal and Steph erupt in laughter over something I haven't really been paying attention to, sounding hollow and muffled in my ears. Alex, Alex, calls Steph. I look up at her. Her own glass of Moscato is almost empty, and she tips back the last sip into her mouth and leans closer to me. Too close, in fact. Actually, what the hell? Steph, what are you? Let me look at you, she says, smiling comically huge. So pretty. What the hell? I laugh. Get off me. So, you two are, like, together, slurs Opal, taking another sip. I mean, you tell me, Alex. Steph grins. It takes me way too long to realize what's going on here. You used a word for me earlier at the door. What was it? Oh, yeah. Friend.
Here it comes.
Friend. That's what that look earlier was about. I have to change the subject. Opal, I say, clearing my throat and sitting up straighter. I set my wineglass down on the side table next to me. That's quite enough of that shit. So would Clover mind if we took a look at that Saturn so we can get to Fort Collins by tomorrow night? Oh, sure, she says, her sure swinging into the stratosphere with how high and squeaky it is. It's out back. I'll show you. She gets up, takes a step, and drops to her knee. Then both. Opal? I ask. Opal falls forward, and I lunge to reach her, but not fast enough. Opal's face meets the rug, and her feet swing up behind her before falling flat on the floor. Oh my God, screams Steph. Opal, what the? I race to meet her on the floor, finding her wrist and jamming my index and middle finger against a vein. I feel the bump, 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 and assure Steph she's alive, just unconscious, probably stood up too fast. Steph says nothing, so I look up at her to make sure she's okay. A crackling red corona flares around her forehead, then spits into a jagged crown of tight royal purple spines. She's not okay. Steph? She's glaring at me, eyes full of tears, her cheeks wet. What the hell are we gonna do, Alex? She demands. We're stranded out here in fucking Barbazal, in this fucking house with fucking... She gestures wildly at Opal. We've killed the mayor's daughter. We didn't kill her, I bite back. I feel the irritation welling up in me.
She fine.
Yeah, I don't want to be here in this
Ish.
mansion with an elected official's unconscious daughter full of wine and likely no cell reception. We need to call for help, or at least try. My drunken hands scramble for my phone and dial 911. Barbazal may be small, but they have to have a hospital, right? 911, what's your emergency?
So.
Asks the operator. She sounds completely flat, even, like she's prepared for anything. In the city, they usually sound bored out of their minds, probably because they're getting calls about inconsequential injuries that could be handled in an urgent care center. Out here in farmland, I can't imagine people would call 911 for small things. With such heavy machinery everywhere, I'm sure this lady hears all kinds of calls about life-threatening injuries. Hi, I'm calling because my friend here is unconscious. There's that word again. Friend. The same word I used for Steph. My chest blooms with pain at the sound of it. I get it now. Friend is so basic. Even girlfriend doesn't sound like it has enough weight. It's so much less than what Steph and I have. She's so much more. Especially when I can use the word friend for someone we only met hours ago. I turn away from Steph so I can concentrate on the call, and the operator replies with all sorts of basic medical questions. Does your friend have any medical conditions? Does she take any medications? Has she had any intoxicants? I can answer that last one, but as for the first two... Actually, I only met her a few hours ago. Just then, I hear Steph behind me, her voice soft but urgent. She's awake. Opal? I turn, and sure enough, Opal's eyes are fluttering, a huge purple aura of fear blooming above her head. What? She squeaks before her eyes close again. No, I have to see what's making that aura purple. Maybe if I can find out what she's so afraid of, someone who drinks must know their limits enough to not be terrified if they passed out suddenly. I can find out what's really going on with her. I reach my hand out just as I hear the operator ask, Is she responsive? But I'm already in Opal's world, watching as she tips back a couple of pills from an orange prescription bottle. I lean in closer to read it. Cyclobenzaprine. I'm back with Steph and Opal, whose purple aura is fading as she drifts into unconsciousness again. What's your friend's name? Comes the operator's voice. Her name is Opal Biggs, I say, my heart racing as I tell the operator. And she's had cyclobenzaprine and Moscato. A lot of Moscato. The operator grows quiet for a long moment. So long that I wonder in panic if she's still on the line. Hello? I ask. Opal Biggs? She asks, her voice pointed and even. I'm sending an ambulance right now.
Oh, that was quick.
9. Clover. The operator didn't just send one ambulance. Everywhere I look, red lights flash angrily along the driveway. There are no fewer than 5 emergency vehicles here to transport Opal out of the house and onto a stretcher.
Hold on. We'll do one.
I turn to Steph and breathe a huge sigh of relief that Opal's in great hands now. Better hands than ours. And to my surprise, she throws her arms around me, pulling me close.
We'll do this final chapter, and then we'll wrap it up after this.
I'm sorry, she says. No, I reply. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have... Me first, she laughs, pulling back and looking up at me, her hazel eyes flickering. I got mad at you for calling me a friend, which is stupid. We are friends, best friends, and it's great. There's so much I want to tell her, need to tell her, but as I search for the words, I want to be even more.
technically at this point you must be at the very least friends with benefits by now, right? aside from aside from the kissing, pretty sure there'd be some other stuff going on there.
Do you want to be more? Is there already something more? I mean, we've been making out on the regular, so I just assumed.
Ah, shit.
But at this point, even friend with benefits sounds too light. Thank God, she continues.
There you go. Look at that. Hey, everybody's on the same page here, as I said. I mentioned all the making out, and then the friends with benefits line. Look at that. Yeah. We're all on the same page, all three of us here. Me, Steph, and Alex. We're all together on that one. There you go.
But new words cut through all the noise around us. What the hell happened up here? Snaps a woman as she climbs out of a big blue pickup truck, slamming the door behind her. Her curly red hair swings behind her in a braid. It's so long I can see it swaying past her hips on either side of her. She marches past every ambulance, all the lights, all the workers, and right up to the stretcher, which is only 10 feet or so away from Steph and me. Ma'am, if you could, begins an EMT with gentle hands outstretched to her. Don't you ma'am me, Curtis. I live here. Now you tell me what the hell happened to Opal. Clover, I can't. You can and you will. So this is Clover Biggs. Damn. Is she a totally different person than the woman I saw resting that fishbowl on the ground in front of that magnolia tree, with the kind words about the goldfish keeping her sister company? And who the hell are you? She snaps, staring Steph and me down like this is clearly our fault. Some friends of Opal's from the city? No, says Steph. We're from Haven Springs. We came up here to ask Opal for help with our car. There are plenty of folks in town without you coming all the way up here about car trouble. I know you're paparazzi. If you really needed help with a car, you'd go see Elias. He'll help you out. In the meantime, you leave me and my family alone. Clover, I begin gently, your father sent us up here. Oh, like I believe that, she scoffs. Did he tell you to get Opal hopelessly drunk and send her to the hospital too? Opal got up to show us a car your dad says you keep in the garage that we could search for parts. Steph says, if you can just get us the engine pistons, we'll be out of your hair. She looks skeptically between Steph and me. Honest to God? She asks. We nod in unison, and I really mean it. There's absolutely nothing here that's going to get me closer to talking to Jonah Macon, so we might as well get what we really need. Pistons. No questions, puffs Clover, marching between us and past the house. Come on. I don't tolerate slow walkers. I smile at Steph, who smiles back at me, grabs my hand, and leads me to follow Clover around the side of the house. Guess I'll ask, but what, later. This backyard is way bigger than it looked from inside the house. Clover is dead silent as we walk across the grass. Questions swirl in my head. Why didn't Opal warn us she'd taken cyclobenzaprine? Why the hell was she drinking when she was taking muscle relaxants? Clearly, Steph has questions too, because she ventures us all into conversation. Clover? No questions, hisses Clover over her shoulder, marching onward. Steph and I exchange an awkward glance, and then Steph begins to grin. She has a plan. Oh no. What happened back there with Opal? She continues. Is she okay? She'll be fine, Clover spits. Long as she can find herself better friends than you. Now, wait a goddamn minute. I feel my veins pumping with rage. She drank that Moscato on her own, I argue. You'd think she'd know better than to mix it with muscle relaxants. A huge red aura like a brilliant poppy flower blooms around Clover's head. If you want these parts, I suggest you shut the hell up. Bingo. I reach forward into that aura and make a fist, sucking me into her world. It's daylight again. I'm standing by the tree. Clover is standing in front of me, staring up at it, her red braid shining in the sunlight. She's wearing shorts and a simple t-shirt, and her arms are brushed here and there with white splotches. Paint? Hey, comes a man's voice from behind me. Clover and I both turn, and at first I expect to see the face of Mayor Biggs, since we're on his property and he's the only man in the household. But when I look, I see a much younger man, with dark jeans and a short-sleeved white-collar shirt, lanky arms and neck, and a movie star smile that I immediately recognize. Jonah? I ask. No way. This man, this kid, can't be the same puff-chested politician I saw riding around on top of that flashy classic car in the parade in Elias's memory. No way. He looks so my age. Then, as if seeing Jonah on Mayor Biggs' property wasn't jolting enough, he walks right up behind Clover, who beams up at him proudly and slips his arms around her waist, planting kisses up her neck. I feel my cheeks warm with embarrassment and I look away. Feels like I shouldn't be seeing this. After all, they think they're alone out here. Well, I mean, they were alone, until I looked into their past and saw them. Whatever. Point is, this feels like an invasion of privacy. Actually, why is this scene such a happy one? I stepped into an angry memory. Where is that anger? Stop, giggles Clover. What if Daddy hears us? He won't, whispers Jonah. Where's Opal? She asks, her voice suddenly tense with worry. She's fine, he scoffs. She has the TV. Choo-choo and whoever the hoo-hoo will keep her busy for hours. Clover giggles again, and even though I've only known her for a few minutes, it feels weird to hear her laugh, like that laughter belongs to someone else. Lulu and Benny the choo-choo, she corrects. And, yeah, you're right. They both breathe a long sigh, as if they've had a long day, and they turn their gaze up to the tree. It's as beautiful as ever, marvels Jonah. Your mom and Magnolia are smiling down on it. I just know it. Yeah, she says, her voice sinking with sadness. You think they're together? Wherever they are, he says, planting a kiss on her cheek. I know they're together. I don't know if I believe in God, Clover, but if he's out there, he wouldn't separate those two for anything. I can't help but smile, and I feel tears welling in my eyes. My own memories creep in, one at the forefront before all others. Mom. Alex, she asks, reaching up to find my face. Alex, my darling, why are you crying? Can I go with you, Mom?
I'll be right back. Ooh. Gotta take a gotta take a little bathroom break. I will be right back. Alrighty, I'm back. Uh, we got how long we got left for this chapter? For this chapter, we got about 24 minutes left.
I don't have anyone else. You have your brother, she smiles, although I can see the pain in her face. The way her cheeks look more caved in than they ever have. The way her eyelids droop. The way her lips are tight. She coughs once, then again, and I reach for her water cup on the nightstand, or rather, the hospital cart. She takes a couple of sips. The doctors always seem to want her to drink more, and breathes a deep, deep breath, as if she's just finished a marathon. Thank you, she whispers, smiling up at me again. You have your brother. You have your father. And for now, she reaches over and takes my hand in hers. You have me. I want to go with you, I say, catching my own voice splitting into a million pieces. You'll see me again, she says, reaching up to brush some of my short dark hair away from my eyes. It falls right back down since I'm looking down at her in the bed. Promise. I shut my eyes tight and feel a sob escape. Then in the darkness, a sharp, ear-splitting scream bubbles forth from the ether. A long, droning holler that no one should ever have to hear. My eyes fly open to see Clover and Jonah looking back toward the house, eyes huge. They exchange a panicked glance before sprinting inside, and I follow close behind. Opal? Shrieks Clover. Opal, where are you? Clover? Comes Opal's voice, terrified and jagged. I race behind Jonah and Clover, who dart down the long green hallway and up the stairwell, where Clover explodes into a bathroom to find Opal crumpled up on the floor in a heap and blood. So much blood.
Jeez.
Her face is pale, her eyes lifeless as she looks up at Clover and admits, I'm sorry. Opal, sobs Clover, kneeling and taking Opal's arms in hers. She lifts them against Opal's whimpering protests, and I see a slash mark across each, deep red gashes bubbling forth with blood. I'll make a tourniquet, she announces to Jonah. You call 911. I'm frozen to the ground, rooted to the spot. My legs are jelly, disobedient even.
Yeah, that's a suicide attempt is a kind of a unexpected turn on that one.
And as I will them to move, my stomach turns over and I feel like I might throw up. There's blood everywhere, splattered across the bowl of the bathtub and smeared across the faucets, dripping down the side and smudged and dragged across the floor to underneath Opal, her once vibrant green eyes fading, her limbs going limp. She's wilting in Clover's arms. Opal? Come Clover's pleas. Opal? Please, God, no. Stay with me. Memories flood me, bubbling forth so fast I can't control them. A white body bag being carried out of the front door of the second children's center I called home. All the interior door handles were replaced with grabbable indentations instead, things you couldn't tie a bedsheet to. A supervisor I hadn't met before, running with a child much younger than I, cradled in her arms, graying skin, dripping wet, and screaming for someone to call 911. The next day, the pool was closed. Several news crews with flashing camera lights and microphones waved in the faces of our teachers, demanding to know how a teenage boy was able to escape and make it to the highway, and what drove him to such lengths to take his own life. I'm back in the bathroom. Then I'm back in the yard. Alex? Comes Steph's voice. What do you think? I blink myself back into the moment, yanking my hand back from the memory I'm clutching my wrist as if it burned me. I can still see those deep gashes. I look at Steph, having no idea what the hell she and Clover have been talking about. Clover walks onward as if Steph hasn't said a thing, but Steph sees me, like, really sees me again. And I feel tears about to burst forth from me, like I'm about to explode. I want to disappear. I want to scream. She snatches my hand as desperately as if I were stranded in the middle of the ocean and bleeding strength. Steph, I can't do this. Let's just get the pistons and go, she whispers. The hell are you two jabbering about back there? Snaps Clover, turning suddenly toward the building to our left and reaching up to take hold of a huge barn door clasp. I said no questions. We weren't asking questions, protests Steph, clearly annoyed now. Just give us the pistons and we'll leave you alone forever. That last word, forever, feels like it stabs me in the chest. Forever? We're just going to leave Clover and Opal here? Like this? Opal almost died, for God's sake. I can still see the blood. I can smell it. I whisper to Steph, but before I can say more, Clover yanks the clasp up, sending an eerie and piercing squeak ringing out through the yard. Steph jumps like I do, but Clover seems unbothered. It's right in here, she says, sounding more exhausted than anything. We'll wait out here, says Steph. Clover looks between the two of us and rolls her eyes. She doesn't say it, but the word is implied. Babies. And I can't blame her. Who looks as calm as their own sister is being carted away in an ambulance after another possible suicide attempt? I guess someone who can suppress all the rage I just stepped into. Someone who would be in that question with the word another. Opal has had at least two. Maybe she suppressed her own emotions like I used to before I learned to control them. I know what it's like to feel rage like a fireball, fear like an icy storm, and joy like heavenly sunlight, and still have to carry on with life as if nothing happened, because practicality demands it. I'm no stranger to death, to suicide, to self-harm. Not my own, but just as painful. I take a deep, desperate breath of the cool evening air. I look up at the horizon line, at the sun slowly sinking beyond the horizon through the sparse trees, and I remember the sunset from Haven Springs, wedging itself between the mountains in the distance. And suddenly, sharply, deeply, I miss home. We never should have left for good. I cradle my arms around myself. Hey, begins Steph, gently, now that Clover is deep within the barn. You saw something. I shut my eyes and let the tears fall, my jaw burning from holding them back. Doesn't matter, I croak. I'm no closer to meeting Jonah. I just want to leave. I shut my eyes tighter than I ever have and allow myself a single biting sob. Then I feel something warm and hard against my forehead. I peek and see Steph's eyes inches from mine, the tip of her nose touching the tip of mine, and I drink in her company. We can go if you want, she says. You know I've got you. I promise. Thanks, I whisper. What I saw was just... You don't have to talk about it, she says. No, I want to, I say, and I do, but not here. But I remember a detail of the memory that is important. Right now, right this minute. Clover and Jonah, I begin, trying to figure out how to phrase this without implying anything. They were married? Not necessarily. Boyfriend and girlfriend? They were lovers? Who said anything about were? Maybe they're still together. They kissed. Steph pulls away and raises a single eyebrow, her face full of curiosity, like she's watching a juicy soap opera. I saw them. They were together. Her eyes go wide, and she glances at the barn door and lowers her voice. You saw them in bed? No, I exclaim, way too fast, feeling my cheeks grow warm with embarrassment. No, they were together in the yard. I glance past her and realize the slope of the lawn, the building behind me. I know this area of the yard. I look to where I think I might find it, and there it is, the magnolia tree. I let go of Steph's hand and approach it. It's not much taller than when I saw that memory of Clover and Jonah, and I realize Opal didn't look much younger in the memory either. Maybe Clover and Jonah were together not nearly as long ago as the memory originally felt. I look up at the leaves fluttering in a breeze so subtle I almost miss it. And for me, they glisten, almost seem to glow, humming with memories dancing on the leaves in gold, blue, red, and purple auras along the edges. I reach out and take one. It feels warm between my fingers, then freezes like ice against my skin, and then back to warmth. This is, I whisper to Steph, Magnolia's tree. I saw all of them standing here, and this is where Clover and Jonah kissed, finishes Steph, looking up at the leaves and then down to the base of the tree. What's this? She asks, crouching down in the grass and inspecting a little wooden sign there. I kneel beside her, sinking to my knees on the hard, unforgiving earth, and read the inscription. Here lies Magnolia May Biggs. We will never forget you. Damn, whispers Steph. How old was she? I don't know. I remember what it felt like to say goodbye to my mom, knowing I would never see her again, after knowing her my whole life. I remember what it felt like to say goodbye to my dad when he walked out of our front door, not knowing if I'd ever see him again. That was almost worse. Believing he was somewhere out there, choosing to be dead to me and Gabe. And I remember Gabe. I remember standing on the mountainside with him as the rocks tumbled, catching him completely off guard. And I remember the sound of the rope between us snapping as Ryan cut it, freeing me from being dragged over the side with my brother. Believing I could save him till the last moment. I wonder if that's how Clover felt as she held Opal in her arms, or how she felt as she watched Opal on the stretcher, wheeled out to an ambulance. Here's your pistons. Clover's voice cuts through the silence like a knife, and I jump so hard I turn and almost fall against the tree, but I catch myself in time. Steph pushes herself to her feet and takes the burlap bag gently, like we're museum curators, and it's $1 million, no, priceless vase. Thank you, offers Steph. You're welcome, beams Clover with, is that a hint of a smile? Now get off my property. I look at Steph. Steph looks at me. I can read her face like a book. You still want to back out? I guess it's now or never. I look down at the bag in Steph's hand and I picture us, arm in arm, walking back to Owen's place, packing up my guitar and Steph's drum kit out of Silas's truck, maybe grabbing an extra plate of French toast for the road from the Barbazal diner, and hitting the highway. We could be out of here forever. We could leave behind Silas, Elias, Owen, Biggs, Jonah, Clover, and Opal. No, I can't leave Opal. Whatever is going on here in Barbazal, between the drought and the election, I just know Clover is the key to fixing this. Clover? I say her name before I talk myself out of it. Aw, hell, here we go, she grunts, turning and storming off. I hurry after her. I don't have any questions. Uh-huh, sure. I knew you were paparazzi. She's jogging now. Leave me alone before I get my 22. Dude, Alex, calls Steph, her hand on my arm, but I yank it away and hurry on after Clover. I just wanted you to know that we didn't know Opal had taken... I catch myself before I reveal that I somehow know she took 5 milligrams of cyclobenzaprine. Whatever she took, she offered us the Moscato, and we thought everything was fine. Uh-huh, great, she spits. Now, in the warmest Barbazal way, kindly fuck off. We're around the side of the house now, and Clover begins to bound up the front steps to the porch, and I realize I have to dial this up a notch. What made her do it? I holler, stopping short of the porch and watch Clover pause at the top. What? She asks. In the brief time I talked to Opal, I say, catching my breath, I know she would have known what medication she was taking and that they don't mix with alcohol. This wasn't an accident, was it? She looks over her shoulder at me, eyes narrowed. Then she turns and walks back down the steps, fists balled, jaw clenched. I'm a little girl again, standing in my childhood living room, watching my brother and father face off over nothing, and I find my hands reaching behind me for my record player. I imagine that Peaches song playing as I try to drown out their yelling. But instead I find Steph's hand. You listen here, and you listen good, says Clover. Opal is none of your concern. You don't know nothing about us, about our family, about Barbazal or what we need. So why don't you get out of here and go home to the big city where everything comes easy and there are no barn doors to startle you and you can get engine parts any old where? Because I want to help, I reply. Clover scoffs at me, hawks a loogie, and spits it into the grass, dangerously close to my Doc Martens. If you want to help, vote. I see my way in. For Jonah? I ask. The sheer mention of his name sends a blue spiral swirling into an aura over her head, and she blinks, giving her feelings away completely. Jonah makes her sad? I didn't see that coming. Just months ago, they seemed so happy. How did two people go from being so close to hearing the other's name and experiencing such deep sadness? I have to go, she says. Clover, I venture. I'm not paparazzi, but I do want to help Barbazal, really. I'm supposed to play a gig tomorrow night, but I'm staying here until I can talk some sense into Jonah Macon about this drought, she hisses. What do you want him to do, huh? Shoot a hole in the sky and bring rain down into the valley until the river flows through here again? Or maybe you want him to pray us all out of this? Bitter silence settles between the three of us until Clover grits her teeth and says, Ain't no talking sense into that man.
Oh.
I look to Steph, and she seems to understand what I do. Clover's not just talking about politics here. Clover, what makes you think I can help you anyway? What makes you think I have any influence over Jonah Macon? I can hear it in the way you talk about him. It's clear you know him better than most out here, don't you? I ask. Please, please, please don't let this be too obvious of a grab. I only know they were together because I reached into Clover's personal memories, her deepest secrets, things she's probably worked hard to repress for years, and saw them kissing under the magnolia tree. I just need to talk to him, I plead, just for a few minutes. And what makes you so special? She asks, taking another threatening step toward me. She's trying to intimidate me, but it won't work. What makes you think he'll listen to you? How the hell am I going to get through such stubbornness? Clover is a rock, a fortress of resolve. She won't budge without some serious convincing. I glance back up at the magnolia tree, remembering how strong it is, and I wonder if Clover's baby sister had survived. Would they be exactly alike? That magnolia tree, the caption. Who is Magnolia May Biggs? I know I can't exactly jump headfirst into, I know the tree is here for your sister. Clover's face turns a shade paler, and I take a friendly step forward. She meant a lot to you, didn't she? And what about her tree? When Barbazal dries up, how will you keep it alive? Clover's face goes from pale to red, but the aura over her head isn't. It's twisty and vibrant, folding in on itself like a black hole, a confused swirl of blue and violet. Magnolias are some of the most drought-resistant trees in the world. She'll be fine. Her memory will be fine. Not that it's any of your business. You have your parts, now get out. I won't let Barbazal die without a fight, I holler, surprised at the emotion in my own words. I've met so many people here who need a bug in Jonah's ear. Silas barely has enough water for himself, let alone guests. Elias can't run his shop or restore cars without water. Anita's having to ration water at the plate and skate. Bobby and Paisley are trying to keep the bookstore and flower shop afloat. And Magnolia, whoever she was, her tree. That caption says, "We will never forget you." But if that tree dies, doesn't her legacy die with it? I can't let that happen. I won't let it happen to my mom, to my dad, or to Gabe, or to Magnolia May Biggs. I expect rage from Clover. I expect an explosion, but that purple aura remains. The truth is, Clover is scared to death of letting Magnolia's legacy die. Without Magnolia, once the 12 of them are gone, Magnolia will be too. She has to help me. She narrows her eyes at me in a way that says, I know you're right, but I don't like it. 5 a.m, she says simply. Huh? Asks Steph, thoroughly confused. Clover looks at her and then at me like we should have understood the clue and been grateful for it. Jonah Macon goes for a run every day at 5 a.m. An odd fact, but I don't see how that helps us, until Clover continues. He takes the old path around the lake, or what used to be a lake. Start at the tree line, she says, pointing to the far end of the property, where the grass ends and the trees begin. Walk straight into the woods until you find the old stump. You can't miss it. Turn left until you reach the clothesline. Follow the birches until you find the lake. Turn right and follow the footpath till you reach the old bench. Jonah will meet you there. He'll be expecting me. She cuts her own sentence short. I study her as she cradles her arms around herself, turning her gaze to the grass. Clover, still taller than me by about a foot, now looks very, very small. And I put it together. Clover, is Jonah Macon? No questions, she snaps. Shutting her eyes tight, she turns suddenly and walks off. Take your bag and go. I watch Clover go, and I feel Steph's fingers interlace with mine. Holy shit, she whispers to me. So Clover and Jonah are still together. 10.
Okay. So that will do it for. I'll do it for this part of the for this stream here. Um, so so far we Alex went into Clover's memories, saw the little moment she had with Jonah, which unfortunately at this uh, not long after was the suicide attempt from her sister. So hence why bringing up that memory was really sad for her. So, and no, and now with a little bit of knowledge from those emotions, was able to get a little tip on how to meet up with, ooh, excuse me, meet up with Jonah now. So, so in the next, so next time we'll see how that meeting goes, and how that will have any big effects on the story and whatnot moving forward. So, in any event, uh, hopefully, all been enjoying the story so far. It's getting real, starting to get real intense. Especially that the Clover memory with the suicide, and then seems to be technically another suicide attempt with the medicine and the alcohol that she mixed with late earlier. So hopefully everything will be okay later, because obviously we gotta check back in with how she's doing at the after taking her to the hospital and all that stuff. So hopefully that all goes a lot better. But hopefully we'll get all those answers in the next part. So we'll see about that. But anyway, uh this is JR signing off, and I will catch y'all in the next episode.